your strategy will probably fail. Yeah, it's a pretty intense way to start, but stick with me. We're going to talk about why so many brilliant plans fall apart, and more importantly, how you can find the flaws in your plan before the market does. So let's just put a number on it right away. 67%. That's not a typo. According to Harvard Business Review, that's how many strategic plans just don't work out. We're talking 2 out of every 3 plans that companies pour their hearts and souls into. That's a tough pill to swallow. And believe it or not, it might actually be worse. You've got heavy hitters like McKinsey and Bain looking at this, and their research, it suggests the failure rate could be as high as 90%. 90. That means failing is basically the default setting. It's the norm, not the exception. So you have to ask, right? How is this even possible? We're talking about some of the smartest, most experienced people on the planet, with access to all the data they could ever want. So why does this keep happening? Well, it's not because they aren't smart. It's something else, something much more human. Yeah, this is where we get into the blind spots of genius. It turns out, success can be its own worst enemy. It's not about people being incompetent. It's about successful organizations building these mental habits, these ways of thinking that, over time, actually make them blind to the next huge threat. Okay, let's talk about Kodak. This is the poster child for this kind of thing. And what's crazy is they weren't blindsided by some new tech. No way. One of their own engineers invented the very first digital camera way back in 1975. They literally invented the technology that would eventually destroy them. So what happened? Well, the consensus inside the company was basically this: digital will never replace film. Think about that. This wasn't just an opinion. It was the company-wide belief that protected their massive, century-old business. They just couldn't imagine a world without film, even though they were the ones who created the alternative. And here's the result. After 130 years of being the name in photography, Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012. It's a story that went from unthinkable to totally inevitable, all because of that one giant blind spot. Okay, so you think that's a one-off? Let's talk about Nokia. It's the exact same story, different industry. These guys weren't playing catch-up. They had a working prototype of a full touchscreen smartphone years before the first iPhone ever hit the stage. And what did their own senior management say when they saw this incredible piece of tech? That's not how phones work. Can you believe that? Their idea of what a phone was so fixed, so locked into their past success with plastic buttons that they looked at the future and just couldn't see it. The outcome? Exactly the same as Kodak. Utter collapse. Their market dominance, which felt completely unshakable, just poof, it vanished. So you have to wonder, what's the common thread here? What links these 2 epic failures? Well, it comes down to this really dangerous psychological trap called groupthink. It's what happens when the desire to just agree and get along becomes more powerful than the need to actually dig in and question things. And the scariest part? When you're in it, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels great. It feels like teamwork, like unity. All right, so if that's the poison, what's the antidote? Well, lucky for us, there is one. It's a powerful idea that comes from a world where the stakes are even higher: military intelligence. And it's called red teaming. So what is red teaming? Think of it like a structured, authorized attack on your own plan. You create a red team whose only job, their entire purpose, is to play the role of the enemy. They're there to find every single weakness, every flawed assumption before your real competitors do. And listen, this isn't some hot new business buzzword. This is a battle-hardened strategy. It was born in the Cold War, where the US military used it to think like the Soviets. It was formalized by the Israeli military after they were caught off guard in the Yom Kippur War. It's been institutionalized by the US Army. This thing was forged in places where getting it wrong has life or death consequences. This quote really gets to the heart of it. A red team that succeeds in identifying a fatal flaw in your strategy has not failed your organization, it has saved it. That just flips the whole script, doesn't it? The person who finds the problem isn't the bad guy, they're the hero. They didn't break the plan, they saved the company. Okay, so how do you actually do this? It's not just about telling people to be more critical in meetings. That doesn't work. It's a structured process with a real toolkit of techniques.
We're going to look at 3 of the big ones, techniques you can start thinking about right away: devil's advocacy, the pre-mortem, and what's called a competitive threat simulation.
So devil's advocacy. We all know the phrase, but this is different. This is a formal job. You literally assign a team and say, your mission is to build the strongest possible, fact-based argument that our core belief is wrong. So for Kodak, the red team's job would have been to prove, with evidence, that film was doomed.
Then there's one of my favorites, the pre-mortem. It's brilliant. You get everyone in a room and you start with this question. Okay, fast forward 18 months. Our big plan has been a total disaster, a complete failure. So, what happened? By making failure a past event, you trick your brain. You skip past all the optimism and give people the freedom to talk about all the things they were secretly worried about.
All right, I get it. This might sound like something only a huge corporation or the military could pull off, but you can actually get started with this, and it's simpler than you think.
Here's a basic 5-step plan. First, you get a small team of people who weren't involved in making the strategy. That's key. They have to be outsiders. Second, you give them everything, the plan, the data, all of it. Third, and this is crucial, you tell them your only job is to find the flaws. Don't be nice. Fourth, you have to do this after the plan is drafted but before it's final. And finally, number 5, you actually have to listen to what they find and use it to make the strategy stronger.
So when you boil it all down, you're left with a choice. And I want to be clear, red teaming isn't about creating doubt. It's about earning your confidence. It's the difference between hoping your plan is good and knowing it's solid because it's already survived a fight.
And this really lays it out, doesn't it? You have 2 options. Option 1, you find your own flaws. You run the stress tests, you expose the weak spots, and you build real confidence before you launch. Option 2, you let the market find them. That's the default. And that's how you end up in that 60 to 90% failure zone, when reality shows up and punches you in the mouth.
So in the end, it really comes down to this one question. Someone is going to find the blind spots in your strategy. That's a guarantee. The only thing you get to decide is who finds them first. Is it going to be you, or is it going to be your competition?